Hello, it's Dr. Jackson. Welcome again to Introduction to Biblical Exegesis. This is Lecture 2, Textual and Historical Criticisms. I hope you had the opportunity to review your reading. It will certainly be helpful as you listen to this lecture, and you'll also be able to complete those assignments for this module as well. Let's go ahead and go forward in this lecture. So, we're looking at textual criticism. The definition is a scholarly study of manuscripts to determine the original wording of a text. Remember, in our exegetical discovery, we're looking to determine the original intent of the author of a text. So this aligns with our uh, process of exegetical study. Why are we doing this? To establish the most accurate text possible by examining and comparing manuscript evidence. As you can see, this is the work of exegetical study. And what this does is it addresses discrepancies and variations in ancient manuscripts. You have to understand that there are changes that took place in the ancient manuscripts based upon who was writing them, what they were projecting on the manuscripts as well. And so we look at those variations to try to find answers. The importance of textual criticism is it ensures that the text we read today is as close to the original as possible. Remember, the manuscript or the text that we look to serves as the foundation for our exegetical study. And so we want to ensure we have the most accurate possible. And then it focuses on reliability, enhances the trustworthiness of the biblical text. That we can trust what we are reading. The foundation for exegesis provides a solid basis for further interpretive work. We want to ensure that the work of interpretation is based on the most accurate and reliable biblical texts and information that we are able to review. So let's look at some methods of textual criticism. There's comparative analysis. We're examining differences between the manuscripts. Okay. We're looking at textual variants, identifying and categorizing those differences. Let's look at some principles of textual criticism. And you'll find these in your reading. Lectio difficilior, prefer the more difficult reading, and the term lectio brevior, prefer the shorter reading of the text. Contextual consistency, ensure the variant fits the context of the passage. All of these are methods and principles of textual criticism. Ensure that you review this again in your reading as well. Types of textual variants, variations among manuscripts in the original languages. Okay. Variations among the early translations of biblical writings. We're just going through those categories of textual variants. Variations between the ancient manuscripts in the original languages and manuscripts of early translations. And also variant quotations in early non biblical Jewish and Christian writings. As you can see, there are a number of variants as one does exegetical study utilizing textual criticism. There's a lot of work to be done as you look at the number of variants that could be possible with a specific text. Okay. Again, I'm simply introducing you to the concept of textual criticism and what one would engage in the full exegetical process. This is for your awareness. Okay. When you look at manuscript evidence, the types of manuscript, all right, original, early, the different types of languages, all right. Early manuscripts were written on papyrus, Okay, manuscripts written in large and uppercase letters. Later manuscripts written in a cursive script. So you're looking at these different, I'm going to use this word, variations, even in how the manuscripts were constructed. Lectionaries, books containing scripture readings for church services. Okay, and so the discoveries, the importance of the Dead Sea Scrolls and other archaeological finds that help to further substantiate manuscripts that we utilize to conduct our exegetical studies. So let's summarize. Textual criticism is essential for reconstructing the original text, right? Its importance is it provides a foundation for accurate and reliable biblical interpretation. That's so important. What you and I utilize as a foundation, certainly with biblical texts, must be accurate and reliable so that the interpretation can be accurate and reliable as well. Engaging in textual criticism enhances understanding and appreciation of the biblical text. Because, you know why? Because you have done the work. You have dug deep to find the original wording, meaning, intention of the author. Historical criticism focuses on the setting and time and place. Okay. The study of the historical context in which a text was written as we look at historical criticism. What is its purpose? To understand the time, place, and circumstances of the text composition. Why is it significant? It provides insights into the cultural and social dynamics that influence the text, which is its historical arms, what was taking place during that time period, not just in that region, but the surrounding region, and what was taking place in the world as it was known at that point. The importance of historical criticism. Contextual understanding. It illuminates the historical backdrop of the text. So, what that teaches us is that when we read the biblical text, we can't just read it in isolation, but we really need to know where that text sits historically. The cultural insights. It provides insight into the cultural and social dynamics of that time period. What was it like to be in Babylonian exile? What was it like to be a Jew under Roman domination? It's the historical aspect and where that text sits so that we can get a full picture of what was taking place at that time. The importance of historical criticism, it enhances interpretation. It leads to a more nuanced and informed reading of the text. Because when I give consideration to the historical value of the text, I now have a full picture. And here we go. Our accuracy and reliability increases when we begin to interpret that text, bring it forward for today's understanding. Okay. The historical criticism, the history in the text, refers to what the text itself narrates or relates about history, whether persons, events, social conditions, or even ideas. In other words, when you read the text, it provides you with history as you're reading it. Okay. The history of the text refers to something different, for it is not concerned with what the text itself says or describes, the story it tells, but with the story of the text, or what one writer calls the career of the text. its own history: how, why, when, where, and in what circumstances it originated, by whom and for whom it was written, composed, edited, produced, and preserved, why it was produced. This is all about the history of the text, and this will require intentional digging for information. You won't get this just from reading the text, the history in the text. So, two different perspectives: history in the text, history of the text, which require more work. And it's necessary if we're really going to do this work of exegetical study. Historical context of the Old Testament. Okay, you have patriarchal period, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, nomadic lifestyle, and covenantal promises. All of this helps us to understand the patriarchal period from a historical perspective as we look at the Exodus and the conquest, Moses, Joshua, and entry into Canaan. We begin to understand the liberation and nation building concepts that took place from a historical standpoint. What was the history surrounding this Exodus, or even the enslavement, right? And we look at the monarchy and the exile, David, Solomon, Babylonian exile, establishment of the kingdom and its eventual fall. What about the split of the kingdom? Let's look at it from a historical standpoint. It is going to inform our understanding. Okay, historical context of New Testament, the intertestamental period, developments between the Old Testament and the New Testament, Hellenistic influence and the rise of Jewish sects, Roman occupation, influence on Jewish society and early Christianity, political and social challenges. As we begin to read the Gospels, how does this history play with this sacred text? As I said before, what was it like from a historical perspective to be under Roman domination? And how did the Jewish influence the Romans? And the Romans had the power to crucify Christ, but influenced by Jewish leaders. All of those things have a role, and the interplay of those historical contexts is important as we read the New Testament text. Archaeological and historical criticism. The importance of finding such things as the Dead Sea Scrolls. It adds more context to the exegetical study. Ancient inscriptions and artifacts. The impact on understanding how archaeology enhances historical and cultural comprehension. To be able to go to some of the places and see these archaeological um, artifacts expands our understanding, or to study them widens our perspective from a historical standpoint. Methods of historical criticism. We want to look at content, source criticism, identifying sources used in the composition of the text. Okay. Form criticism, analyzing literary forms and genres in terms of parables, psalms, prophecies. Redaction criticism, examining how editors shaped and modified the text. Editorial themes in the Gospels. These are all methods of historical criticism. Case studies in historical criticism. Example one, the historical setting of the Exodus narrative, Egyptian influence, and regional politics. That information would be important to understand and add to our ability to create this picture, frame it in a historical context. Example two, the social political context of Paul's letters, Roman law, citizenship, early Christian communities. What are the dynamics of that from a historical standpoint as well? I hope that you enjoyed the lecture and hopefully your reading has coincided with that. And then you'll be able to work that out in your assignments as well. The next lecture will be on grammatical and literary criticism. This is Dr. Jackson. Take care.